Okay, so welcome to our second annual joined by the City of Janice for our Let's Talk Energy Week in partnership with the Science and Technology Museum. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce Janice Ashworth today, our speaker, who has been with the Ottawa Renewable Energy Co-op since 2011 and has a total of 10 years of experience in the renewable energy sector under her belt. So without further ado, as we're running a bit behind schedule, I'll pass the stage over to Janice. Please take it away.
Okay, thanks, Jeremy. Nice to meet you all. Thanks for joining in and tuning into this session of something that I'm particularly excited about, which is renewable energy. Can you all see my screen? Yeah, okay. I'll assume that's the case. So what we're looking at here is the Ottawa Renewable Energy Co-op's latest project on a school. Call it Investing Responsibly, Building a Legacy. So what is the Renewable Energy Cooperative? We are a for-profit renewable energy cooperative incorporated in 2010. In September under the Ontario Co-op Corporations Act. That's a specific type of cooperative that is unique to Ontario. That was part of the Green Energy Act, brought in under the Green Energy Act in 2009. And so we developed our co-op as a way for residents of Eastern Ontario to jointly own and invest in their own renewable energy systems in their community. So co-owning their own green utility. Why did we do that? So we know that there is an urgent need to reduce our greenhouse gases as a society. And we know that the technology is not the question. So we have technologies that are off the shelf, available today, proven today, can 100% renewably power our needs and renewably energize our needs. The main challenge is the inertia that's bureaucratic, political, financial, and social, going in sort of the business as usual direction. So we need to use our co-op model. We think that the co-op model provides a very, very good opportunity or a very good mechanism for enabling individuals to use their investment portfolios as a tool for that change to changing that inertia, as well as it allows us to use the ripple effect of our networks, our social networks, our community networks, to also sort of steer that ship in a different direction. So the objectives at OREC are to generate community-owned distributed renewable energy across Eastern Ontario, as well as a number of other objectives of stimulating the industry, green jobs, and public awareness. Now, our sources of electricity in Ontario are primarily nuclear power. So 63% of the grid is made up of nuclear power, a large chunk of natural gas, 24%, and then hydroelectric also makes up, hydroelectric is the 24%, natural gas is the 6%, and solar and biofuels are in there as well. What is not on this list anymore, you'll see, is coal power. So in 2014, Ontario was made a milestone achievement of getting rid of all of the coal off the grid. And that was facilitated by bringing on more renewable energy and shifting away from dirty sources of fuel. Now, we know we also have a significant amount of opportunity to grow in this direction. So we look at Germany and the renewable energy percentage owned by communities there, and you see it's that blue section on the bottom circle. It's almost 50% of their renewable energy in Germany is owned by citizens and cooperatives. In Ontario, that's still only about 3%. So we know that we have a long way to go. Now, we also have a good percentage of First Nation and Métis ownership. That's about 10%. So that is moving things in the right direction as well. But we still have a lot of opportunity to increase the democracy of our energy systems in Ontario. Now, I should note this is sourced back to 2016. So these numbers have changed a bit in the positive direction since then. Ontario is moving toward the distributed grid. So we know that we historically developed our grid networks, our electricity wire networks, be a one-way highway system. So cars or transmission on that system could only go one direction. If you equate it to a highway, it's like a one-way street. Now, what we're looking for when we're shifting towards a clean and local power system, What we need is a two-way flow of traffic on that system. And that means that we need to upgrade our grid, as well as include things like energy storage in there to enable that variability in energy sources that come from things like solar and wind power, that of course are weather dependent. So this is the major shift that Ontario, as well as other jurisdictions, are going through. It's really enabled by distributed power sources like wind, solar, hydro, biomass, biogas. Because those are more distributed in nature, they're smaller facilities, require a larger grid, or a different type of grid network, a two-way form of grid network than just the one-way system that was set up for coal initially in Ontario. Our community ownership model encourages participation in the energy transition and spreads out the benefits. So now we have 725 members who are all benefiting from this energy transition. And that's just one drop in the bucket of all the different types of cooperatives across the province and across the country who are doing the same kind of thing. So it's an opportunity for us to take back the energy service, put it in the hands of the people, and have those people benefit from that transition. Right now across Ontario, there are 96 cooperatives, over 7,000. I think actually that number is more like 10,000 now. Ontarians have invested in renewable energy movement with thousands of megawatts of renewable electricity owned by communities. There's also about $100 million in assets that's been invested by those individuals, and about $10 million in returns annually that go back into the community. Prescott-Russell is a region that we're working in. It's currently underserved by renewable energy co-ops. And it's a way so we're looking for a new chapter out in the Prescott-Russell region. One of our projects to date is in Alfred. This is our first ground mount project. So just to give you a sense of some of the projects that we've been building. This is our first, what we call solar garden. It's 500 kilowatts on the ground. It's the first installation that's a collaborative ownership between a cooperative, a municipality, and a First Nation community. So this is the project that we unveiled in November. You can only install projects like this on poor agricultural land, so it cannot be good quality soil. It can't be used for anything else. That's why it's a perfect opportunity to do solar and generate green power. These particular panels that you see here are called single-axis trackers. They will tip to the east and then to the west throughout the day, catching the sun's rays as straight on as possible. This area is about a 4 or 5 acre footprint that these panels take on the ground. So if you know Alfred, you can see that the location is just behind the fire hall. Benefits to that community, for example, are the lease revenue. So 9% of the project revenues go back into the community. It's also local job creation, local service procurement, contractors, local business patronizing, for example, and then there's ongoing maintenance operations as well. So cooperatives, what is the cooperative difference? Cooperatives are around the world, internationally, cooperatives all adhere to the same 7 value principles. So you can see them listed here. There's 7 different regions or different reasons that people are involved in cooperatives. So the main one that people know is number 3, which is democratic control, 1 member, 1 vote. But the other 6 are equally as important, which is open membership, so non-discriminatory access to the co-op services. They also cannot be bought out by corporations. Cooperatives adhere to collaborating amongst within the co-op sector. So for us, for example, we have insurance with co-ops, we bank with co-ops, and we have some projects on housing co-ops. And then also there's an education and training component, so giving back to the community in various ways, such as this presentation, and concern for community. So we think that that we're demonstrating concern for community by enabling a shift to a green energy future, which is away from damaging sources of energy. So including coal, for example, and moving away from petroleum sources and nuclear sources. Cooperatives also are twice as resilient because of these different value principles that they adhere to. Members and the community are involved for more than just the financial returns. And so they tend to be, they last twice as long as a business than another similar business structure in that same type of business landscape. So a cooperative restaurant, for example, would last twice as long, or would have twice as much probability of succeeding, and so on. In our history, our membership growth has looked, my picture of the screen is looking pretty rough here, but what you can see, we started in 2010, sorry, with 5 members, and we've increased to 725 actually as of today members in this particular year. So it's been organic over the last 8 years. Those members are spread across the region, so you can see we have quite a number in downtown Ottawa, also with representation right around the region of Eastern Ontario. We also have projects that span the region, so you can see here where our projects are located, with a number of them downtown as well as in the east and the west. Our first project outside of the actual city of Ottawa is the Alfred project in the far east corner, so the far right-hand side of the screen. Here's some pictures of some of our projects. So this is a 50-50 collaboration project with Windmill Development. It was built in 2013, and it's a 250 kilowatt roof. This building was purposely designed for solar, or with that specific intent in mind. So it's got an ideal roof sloping directly south. It's a storage facility, so it is used throughout the year, and the roof is our generation facility there. The next biggest project after the ground mount one that you already saw is this one on Hubby Industries out near the Ottawa Airport. It's just about 400 kilowatts on the roof of a commercial facility. This year we actually did a very similar project right across the road from these guys that looks very similar, because the neighbors saw this project going up and said, how do I get one of those as well? So it's a neat sort of ripple effect that way. We have a number of projects on high schools. So this is just one wing of a French high school called Maurice Lapointe. It's in Canada. If you know Ottawa, it's the west end of Ottawa. We also have a number of projects on other high schools, including Samuel Genet, Franco-West, Franco-Cité, and those are with the French Catholic Board. We'll be doing 2 more projects this year, also with that board. We'll be connecting in the summer.
Hi, Janice.
We have some on barns. So this is a sample of a 75 kilowatt project on a horse barn in west of Ottawa, so Dunrobin area. And it's a collaboration with the landowners.
Hi, Janice. Sorry.
Then we have a series of smaller projects on housing co-ops. So this is an example of, an example of solar hot water panels on the roof. You can see there are some panels that stand up higher than the flush mounted glass ones down below. And those ones up top are for solar hot water. So they're catching the sun's heat and converting it into hot water for showers and laundry and things like that. The panels underneath are solar electricity panels. Those are owned by our co-op, and they produce electricity from the sun's rays as well.
Hi, Janice. So sorry to interrupt you here, but I believe most of our classrooms, including myself, are still on your first slide of your presentation. Perhaps
geez.
if you're in a presenter mode, maybe just try exiting out and just manually scrolling through the slides at the side of your...
Oh dear. So you didn't see any of those pictures?
No, unfortunately not.
Oh, you should have mentioned something much earlier. Okay. How do I do that?
So as you're sharing your screen, instead of going into a full screen presenter mode, perhaps if you just scroll.
Share the entire screen?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if this works. Oh, that did not work.
If from here, you just pull up your PowerPoint. And then, yeah, now we can see it.
You can see this one?
Perfect.
Oh dear, so we've missed all of it. So I'll do a flip, I'll just flip back and show you some of the pictures that you missed. Here's a picture of the ground mount one that I was talking about, that's east and west tracking. You can see this now, Jeremy? Okay.
Yep, just fine.
Okay. What else did you miss? Here's a picture of the members dotted across the region. Here's the projects spread out across the region. We've got some pictures of the project. So this is the 50-50 partnership project with Windmill Development. It's 250 kilowatts. Here's the Hubby Industry project. It's a 400 kilowatt site. And there's one just very similar to this going up across the road. Here's a picture of a project on the rooftop of a school. So this is the Maurice Lapointe School in Canada. Just one wing of the school. The rest of the school also has solar on the roof. And then here's that barn I was talking about with the horse farmers. And here's the hot water. So again, just pointing out those panels up top that are raised up off the roof. Those are solar hot water panels that capture heat from the sun and convert it into hot water. And the glass panels below that are the solar electric panels, photovoltaic they're called, and those are the ones that we own that are converting sun's rays into electricity for the power grid. So how we financed those projects, all of those, our whole portfolio of projects is financed 100% through the community. So we have $7 million so far that's been invested by the community. Each year, each offering that we've done now 5, and we're in the middle of number 6. Each offering has raised sequentially more than the previous, starting with $1 million and then 1.2, 1.3, 1.5, and 2 million each year that we've called out for investment. So people are seeing and are excited about the investment opportunity, and what this demonstrates to us is that there's a real need for people to be able to invest in tangible, sustainable projects that are in their community. And so the co-op mechanism, like I mentioned before, is one formula for doing that, is a very clear opportunity for doing that. So we're currently in the 6th share offering. I'll just give you a sense of what that's all about. We're going to be building 2 more projects with the money that we raise. So this is a sample of what it will look like on a French Catholic high school in Orleans. It's about 400 kilowatts on that roof. And then another one in Stittsville, again, the French Catholic board, and it's about 250 on the roof of that school. So impact investing, the trend towards impact investing in Canada has really kind of kickstarted in 2007, and it's about $5.3 billion so far that has been invested in impact funds, which means funds that have a social, environmental benefit, not just a financial return. It's expected that number of 5.3 is expected to grow to about 30 billion by 2020. So a really steep rise in that is expected because of the trends that we've been seeing, with more and more sort of value-based decision making when it comes to your investments. Green bonds make up a large portion of that. So green bond issuance grew from 3 billion 4 years ago to over 40 billion in 2015. Now that's global, of course, but that just gives you a sense of the quick increase. And from polling, 37% of Ontarians said they would consider divesting from fossil fuels, at least partially, in the near future. So that means getting their money out of things that are invested in oil, coal, and gas. So portfolio highlights. So this is if you invest in the OREC portfolio, our projects are secured by real assets and warranties. They are backed by 20-year power purchase agreements with the Ontario government. Those are called the feed-in tariff contracts that we have with the government. We do provide rigorous due diligence and excellent system uptime. In terms of what does that look like from a monetary point of view back into our community, so far we've returned $661,000 back to our investors through dividends and capital returns. And then 98% of what our investors invest in our into our company goes directly into building projects. So we're a pretty lean organization that way. Environmentally, a lot of our investors, or pretty much all of our investors, are looking for the sustainability angle of their investments with us, of our business, and so we've been able to quantify that this year. So far, we've generated about 1,500 megawatt hours in just this past year. That's equivalent to about 165 homes. Now, this year, we expect to see that doubling over just over 350 with the projects that we've got planned for this coming year and that are already being built right now. And then in terms of a percentage of your carbon, the average Ontarian would offset about 25% of their carbon footprint with a $20,000 investment into our solar projects. And we're able to do that because we can achieve economies of scale through our larger size projects than just individuals could do on their own home. So that's a larger percentage of an offset from the same number of dollars invested. Now we're offering these preference shares, which are 20-year terms, average about 4% dividend, with as little as $2,500 invested with RRSP and TFSA eligibility. We've been able to set that up through the Canadian Workers Co-op Federation. They take new contributions and transfers from existing RRSP or TFSA accounts. So this is what a typical investor would see as far as a return. So on $10,000 invested, they get back $14,800 over the course of the term. And part of that is dividends, part of that is capital return. So of course the capital is not taxed. The dividend portion, the light blue portion, is taxable at the dividend rate. So that's a preferential dividend treatment or tax treatment to interest. So anyone who lives in Eastern Ontario can become a member and then can choose to invest as long as they do so between now and the end of February, which are February 25th, really, which is the end of our current offering. We will expect to have more in the future as well. I'll skip ahead to other security that we've offered that's kind of interesting for folks is this 5-year term deposit, which has a 3% annual interest and a capital return at the end of year 5. So it's available now to non-members as well. And members, the other perk of membership is they get discounts at Terra 20, they get Bullfrog Power, free month at Bullfrog Power for their membership share. And there's some referral gifts that we give to people who are refer a friend. So that was going to take me to the end of my presentation. I hope that you were able to catch something from this, from what you did see and hear. I would be happy to take questions now.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Janice, for that presentation. We're going to open the floor up to questions, starting with Ms. Zimmer's class. If Ms. Zimmer's class has any burning questions they'd like to ask, Janice, please come right on up to the front.
Yep, can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Anna? We've got lots of questions for you. So go to the camera.
Hi. Okay. Is it possible for the cost of energy to stay low but enough to sustain economic growth for our planet?
Is it possible for the cost of energy to
stay low but enough to sustain economic growth for our planet?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's really an exciting time in the renewable energy sector because the price of the technology has come down so much that now it's cost competitive to install solar or wind compared to any type of other new energy generation. So yeah, I think the answer to your question is I would say yes. We've seen dramatic declines in the cost of solar power, for example, and wind in the last just the last 5 years alone, and that makes it cheaper than buying power from the grid. It's cheaper to install solar on your own roof than to buy power from the grid.
Thank you.
Great question from Ms. Zimmer's class. Thanks, guys. Do you have anything else?
Yes, we have lots more, Marla.
Research has shown the world's population is going to rise to 9 billion people. Can the planet supply the energy needed to achieve that end, or can we supply that much renewable energy to give that many people?
Yeah, like I said before in my presentation, the challenge is not a technology one. We have technologies available off the shelf today to be able to meet our energy needs, including a growing population base. But the challenge is really one of inertia. So it's really changing the way that we think about decision making, and that policymakers and financial institutions think about what they invest in. So that's really where what I'd like to sort of be the take-home message of this presentation is that groups of people coming together who believe in the same future can enable that transition more quickly than waiting for government, for example, to take us there.
Thank you.
Set of questions, guys. So we're going to have to move on to the next class. Hopefully we can come back to the end just for the sake of time.
Thanks very much.
That was Ms. Zimmer's grade 5 from North Ontario. We're going to move on to Ms. Kowicki's, if I'm saying that right,
Yep.
class. Her primary juniors, or is this the outdoors club?
Yep.
Eco club?
Outdoor club.
From Ottawa. Go right ahead, guys.
What's the highest energy?
What's the highest energy?
Yeah.
Not sure really what you mean by that, but the highest sort of quality of energy produced is electricity, and then from that you can convert it into a lower grade energy like heat, which would be a lower grade energy, and then noise and it would be another form of lower grade energy.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Do you have another question?
Oh, no one can see. Anyone else have questions?
No, if that was the only one, we're going to move on. Thank you very much for that question to Ms. Dwarf's class.
How do you get energy? Because like calculators don't work well on cloudy days. At nighttime, yeah. You have a basketball game at night, how in the world do you run your power if it's all solar? Well, we can't have night games.
Yeah. Is that the question? How do you have night basketball games?
Oh, yes, yeah. How would you, if you're all dependent on solar energy, how would you have night events at a school? Do you have a backup plan for it or what?
Yeah, of course. That's a very good question. Yeah, so any sort of transition to a renewable energy future involves a combination of technologies. So wind, solar, biomass, biogas, hydro, all combined will give us more grid resilience. But the other thing that's really important to include in there is energy storage. So we're seeing a very quick transition or very dramatic cost reductions as well in battery technology. And that's going to be with the watershed technology or the watershed moment to enable a full transition towards renewable energy, because that allows us to store energy that we produce during the daytime with our sun, during windy periods with our wind turbines, and use that at times when it's quiet and dark, right? When it's still and dark. So battery technology and energy storage of various forms is really important.
Okay, that was one of the big questions because I've always wondered that. And we have a young lady with another question because we're from the United States and you're talking about Ontario. So she has a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the mic. And
here in the U.S., it seems difficult to have people give up coal. So how did you get people to give up coal?
So you're going to have to repeat the question. Maybe go a little bit closer to the mic. I couldn't do that.
He's coming up. It's in here.
Here in the U.S., it seems difficult to have people give up coal. So how did you get people to give up coal?
That's a really, really good question. The way it happened in Ontario was through a consortium, a sort of collaboration between scientists, between environmental folks, but also primarily the health advocates. So it was a large number of people concerned about air quality. So asthma rates, so doctors, we had doctors involved, we had farmers involved, we had people concerned about air quality and land quality as well. So coal, as you likely know, contributes to particulate matter in the air, which is bad for our health and causes asthma. Coal also contributes to acid rain, which is bad for the soil and is difficult for plants to grow and farmers to make a living. So by collaborating and having a common voice between all of these different disparate groups, we were able to convince every level of government in this province that coal was to be taken out of the grid mix. And that was the main success factor, I would say, and also what enabled a green energy transition and a green energy policy in this province.
Great set of questions there, Mrs. Dorf's class.
Thank you.
Illinois, that's great. We're gonna have to move on because we have 2 more classrooms that I'd love to get questions from. So Mr. Singh's class, I'm not sure if they can hear me. If you guys can, and if we can hear you, come on up and ask a question, or otherwise type it out. I'm gonna look for a response from them. I don't think they can hear us right now, but hopefully I'll be able to relay their question that they type out in the next little while. We're gonna move on to Mr. Atkinson's class. If you guys have a question you'd like to ask Janice, please go right ahead. Mr. Atkinson's class, can you hear me?
No, we didn't. Hi. Which mode of electric production costs the least? Wind, solar, or hydro dam?
Hydroelectric, that's a good question. So right now I'd probably say that in the right location, a hydroelectric dam costs less per kilowatt hour. And the reason that is because a hydroelectric facility can be used for over 100 years without requiring many upgrades. The technology is very robust and lasts a long time. So it's just not as common that you'll find a good location for a hydroelectric dam because it requires a very specific type of landscape, right? It has to be on a river that can be dammed and not flood properties or useful land upstream, and it has to be close enough to a power grid as well to be able to offtake that electricity. But the cost per kilowatt hour of solar continued to decline really quickly, so that difference in cost might be changing pretty soon.
Okay. What is your favorite part about your job?
Good question. Probably working with passionate people who are dedicated to creating a difference in their community. I also like walking around on rooftops in the sunshine. That's pretty fun.
Oh, okay. Me too.
Good question.
Okay, go ahead.
The Atkinson's class there?
Angelica. Why did you pick your job?
Why did I pick it? That's a really good question. And for me, it was sort of a coming together of 2 things that I really care about, which is environmental sustainability and climate change, which I'm sure many of you have heard lots about. Me, that was the #1 challenge that I wanted to work to set my life direction around, working towards climate change solutions. And I also, when I was in university, studied environmental science, but also international development. And through that international development research, I learned that, or I kind of came away with the belief that we really need to close the loop. So keep our energy systems, our waste systems, our production, our food systems as local as possible. And by strengthening the power of our communities, we would be able to overcome the corporate greed, essentially, because most corporations are designed with the intention of shareholder profit as the main priority of their business. And I really believe that through community strength and networks like through cooperatives, we're able to create a different model of business that will allow us to achieve environmental goals and the goals of our business, but also create a new norm for how we make decisions as a society that can take into consideration longer-term planning and thinking about 7 generations into the future. What is the impact of our actions today on their resource availability and on the planet? So that kind of led me towards renewable energy. and community ownership in particular, which is very clear, as you can see in the type of work that I'm doing today. The reason, I guess the one other linkage that I'll make there is, climate change is the big environmental challenge of our time, and the #1 contributing factor to our greenhouse gas emissions and our climate change impact is how we procure our energy system. So how we get electricity for our buildings and how we get how we move around in our vehicles from point A to point B, and also how we heat our buildings, heat and cool our buildings. So those are the uses of energy, and all of those uses combined contribute to pretty much all of our greenhouse gas emissions as a society. So if we can tackle the energy challenge, then we can really have an impact on our climate change challenges.
Great questions and great answers. And we do have Mr. Singh's class, last but not least, I believe typing in a question. Their audio is not working for them today, but we have a young gentleman right at the screen there, I believe, who's typing away. So we're going to wait another couple seconds. Hopefully it gets in. They're able to.
Okay, 60% of energy is nuclear energy. What do you do with the waste from the nuclear energy? Because you can't really use it, but it's pretty dangerous when it decays. That's the question that I saw. Yeah, that's true. That's not my line of business directly. But it certainly is a challenge. That's the ongoing challenge with nuclear power is what to do with the waste. It is dangerous from a human health perspective, from an environmental perspective, and from a risk perspective. It can be used in weapons if it's gotten into the wrong hands. But right now, what's done with that waste is not very safe. It's currently kept on site in a temporary storage facility at each one of the nuclear facilities across this province, and probably across the United States for the few cases where you have for the nuclear facilities that you have in the United States. What the plan is, I believe, is to have a longer-term storage facility somewhere in the Canadian Shield, so in Northern Ontario or Manitoba. That would be far away from communities, from where people live, and would be buried deep in the Canadian Shield, where the radiation would be dampened. That's what I've heard as the plan, but no one's been able to bring that to fruition yet, and it's a pretty expensive project. So I'm not sure yet if the money is in hand either to do that. Our goal as a renewable energy provider is to reduce our need to use nuclear energy, and therefore reduce the amount of waste that's produced that would have to be dealt with for millennia to come. Yeah,
Great answer and great questions from all our classes. Thanks very much, guys. Unfortunately, out of time for our Q&A, but as is tradition with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, I'm going to unmute all the mics of all the classrooms, and I'd like everyone to get out of their seats and make some noise and raise their hands.
Yeah.
Great answer and great questions from all our classes. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.